Hello, and welcome to the Physical Preparation Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Robertson, and today we're going to be going over our 2025 year in review and our 2026 preview. Now, before I go any further and before we get into the full show, I just want to take one quick moment and thank you so much for your support. Kind of hard to believe, but in 2025, we eclipsed 500 episodes of the show, which is mind-blowing to think about. You know, I've mentioned it numerous times now, but I honestly thought I'd do 50, maybe 100 shows, you know, if I was really like stretching myself. But man, it has just been such a fun ride. And I can honestly say I wouldn't be doing this or continuing to do this if it wasn't for people like you. So before I go any further, just thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. Now, as far as today's episode, we're basically going to break this into 3 parts, and it's not going to be super long. I'm going to go a little bit off the cuff here, but we're going to start with a 2025 year in review, right? Kind of talk about, okay, well, what worked, what didn't work, some highlights, some things I wish I could do over. But I think it's important for me to reflect and to be honest and transparent with you, because hey, you're hopefully here for the ride, and I think there's some wisdom in there if you're willing to listen. So we got the 2025 year in review. We're going to do some quick lessons that I learned or maybe I was reminded of over the last year. And again, sometimes I think these things are really instructive, and I feel like sometimes I have to learn these lessons multiple times. So we're going to talk about lessons learned, and then finally we're going to talk about my personal and professional goals for 2026, both for RTS, IFAST, personally. We're going to kind of cover it all. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we will jump into this brand new solo show. All right, my friends. So let's start by talking about the 2025 year in review or 2025 recap. And I always like to start with family, training, personal stuff first. And that may seem selfish, but if you're familiar at all with kind of my thought process to all this, I just think of life as this series of concentric circles, right? And it starts with you. And in this case, it starts with me. When I'm doing what I need to do physically, mentally, emotionally, with my career, everything in my life spills over and gets easier. So if I'm doing what I need to do to take care of myself, then my family is, you know, in a better position. And if my family's in a better position and I'm in a good spot, then it's easier to perform and show up the way that I would like to, both with Robertson training systems and with IFAST. So, you know, just like a couple quick personal notes, because I know some of you really do enjoy this stuff and want to know more, and I'm not always sharing the most. I know I'm bad about it. But a couple things. Number one, Jess is absolutely crushing her job. It's been really cool to watch her just grow and evolve over the last couple of years with her job as a dietitian and just the roles that she's had to take on, and, you know, the continuing education she has to take on and do within her role. So it's been really cool to watch her evolution and watch her growth over the years. So that's been awesome. Kendall is absolutely crushing high school. You know, anytime you send a kid off to a new school, and especially in this case, into a huge high school like Fishers, which has like 3,700 kids, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't admit I was a little nervous for her. But man, she's absolutely crushing high school. She's really found her stride, especially the second half of her first semester. Soccer's going amazing. Obviously, she was a captain of the freshman team this year. She's got some big goals at Fishers for next year and the years to come. And then she's leveled up. She's on a better club team this year. I think she's going to play a really integral role. But I think the most important thing here is she's just buying into the process. And, you know, she's in the gym with me twice a week. She's doing her soccer training with her club. She's doing 2 individual days. She's running on her off days. She's doing mindset training. Like, this girl is so locked in, and it's so fun to watch and just see her grow and evolve as a young human being. So I couldn't be prouder of her. I'm very excited to see what happens for her in 2026. Cade's dominating all the things as well. Probably not talked a ton about it, but again, he is in the robotics club, which is no small feat. He is in math club. This year is the first year he's really started to like work out in the gym. And I got to give a shout out to Sandy and Miguel. Sandy got Cade started. I did not think I was ever going to get this guy to work out consistently with me. And she kind of helped bridge that gap, and she made training fun and enjoyable. And so he did that for about 5 or 6 months. Then he started to realize, hey, this is kind of fun, and I want to do this, and I want to do more of what Dad's doing with the other kids. So it's been really fun to kind of get him on board and get him rolling with all this, and just watching his body, you know, develop and grow as he gets better, and just watching him start to master some of these movement skills is really fun. So Fam's doing amazing. We took some awesome trips and did some awesome travel in 2025. I had to go back through my calendar because to me, it's not about stuff, right? Like obviously we have a nice house. We try and take care of ourselves, but it's not about stuff. It's not about giving my kids more stuff. It's about making memories and doing things that they'll remember and cherish for a lifetime. So I'm just thinking back, like, okay, this was actually the year before, but it was still memorable. We went to the Smoky Mountains for fall break. That was really cool. This last year, got to go to Mexico. So that was their first time ever going out of country. And we went with some of our other families that we're friends with, went there for spring break. So that was an awesome experience. They got to get a passport and go travel overseas. So that was memorable. We did our Chicago and Michigan pre-school trip. So just before school started, we got to go up, spend a day in Michigan with our best friend, our best family friends, the Statons. My best friend from college, I was the best man at his wedding and vice versa. But now our families are really close. So we got to go and hang out. Then we went to Chicago for 2 days and basically ate our way through Chicago. No joke. Cade was very into diners, drive-ins, and dives, or whatever the exact name of that show is. But he was obsessed with that show. So we started making a list and we spent 2 days just trying all these amazing shops and restaurants all over Chicago. So that was a fun trip. I got to go to Michigan again a second time with some of my best friends from college, and we did a dude's fishing trip. Kendall and I went to Montana and spoke at the Revo seminar over fall break, and then obviously we got to go to Florida as a family and see my parents over Christmas. So all in all, just an amazing year filled with growth, laughter, and a ton of memories that we're always going to remember. So the family is always kind of the forefront, and that's always something I'm focused on. So it's awesome to see them flourish and have a great year. Now, to things that are maybe more pressing or more of interest to you. Started writing more at the end of the year, and we're going to talk a lot about writing. I got to do and attend some awesome workshops, right? Joel and I did our Fit for Life workshop in Vegas last January, which is crazy to think about. Like, that's really, really crazy to think that it's already been a year since we did that. It seems like forever ago, but man, that was an awesome event. And it really kind of rekindled my love of live events. It just made me remember, like, we need to do more live events. We need to get around other trainers and coaches. So that kind of rekindled things. That prompted me to then bring Lee Taft out. I believe it was in June at IFAST. And that was just a great event, right? Lee is such a wealth of knowledge and information. And it was so great to have him in and then have all these other coaches come in that want to learn from him and wanted to level up their own skills with regards to speed training. So that was awesome. Got to obviously go to Montana. Shout out to Montana Mike and the whole Revo team for bringing Kendall and I out there. It was awesome. I'm just calling it the Optimizing Movement Workshop. And it's kind of the next iteration of my complete coach seminars that I used to do. And more on this later in the show, but I'll be doing at least one of those in 2026. But that was an amazing time. And then got to finish up going and hanging out with my bros, Luca and Andy, at their Built to Last mentorship in Nashville. And I got to speak there and hang out with them. And it was just an awesome time. And I think being in those situations and in those environments really kind of just rekindles the fire a little bit. And if you've done this long enough, you realize, hey, energy can be fleeting at times, and sometimes it definitely wanes. So you have to find ways to kind of restoke the fire and to get back in there and just truly enjoy, spending time with other trainers and other coaches, remembering why you got into this and continuing to level yourself up as a trainer or coach. And that's something, I still need to do that myself. 25 years in, I still need to get out there and educate myself and just be around other high-level professionals. So the workshops were awesome. IFAST Basketball absolutely exploded. I don't even know what to say here, because did I want some growth? Yes, but I was absolutely floored at the growth that I saw last year. And I went from, maybe having 8 or 10 consistent pros in and not really trying to grow it and just kind of enjoying, like the smaller boutique environment, to last year, I just kind of embraced some of the growth. And I said, hey, let's see what we can do here. And it was just awesome. So many new athletes, really seeing some positive changes. And man, Again, it's just getting conscious of the fact that the crew that I've had forever, hey man, I've trained most of these guys and girls since they became pros 8 or 9 years ago. And the downside to sports is that there is a shelf life. As a coach, hey man, as long as I can stay healthy and mobile and I enjoy what I do, I could coach for 50 years. I remember Al Vermeil coming to one of the physical prep summits years ago, and his title was 55 years of coaching. I was like, damn, 55 years. That's crazy. Cause a lot of us would think of a 55-year-old person as being old, and he had been coaching for 55 years. But yeah, it's just one of those things where there's a shelf life on being an athlete. And so I'm conscious of the fact that I'm going to enjoy every minute I have with that crew. But at some point, they're going to move on and they're going to do other things in life. And so I need to kind of refuel the pipeline a little bit. So it's been fun to get back in there with some more developing athletes and just seeing what we can do to help them take their game to the next level. And, it was really helpful that I organized all of this. I'm sure I've talked about it in other avenues, but man, my process was not streamlined on the business side of this because, again, it was more of like a hobby side hustle thing for me. I wasn't trying to grow it. And last year I had to buckle down. I got organized, and push press was huge for me. We'll talk about partners here in a minute, but push press allowing me to get the scheduling, getting the billing dialed in. It just really worked like a well-oiled machine. So massive shout out to them. And, I have players in question mark leagues, but this has been really exciting too, because I think when you're young, or if you're not around basketball all the time, you just think there's the NBA and maybe the G League. And then, okay, well, what happens if people want to play professionally, but they don't play in those leagues? Well, man, literally almost every country, it feels like, in the world has a league. And so, I haven't done the math here, but I would assume I've got guys and girls that are playing in 10 or 12 other leagues across the world, which is really exciting. And it just shows you how big of a global phenomenon basketball really is. And so for me, I think there was a moment where it's like, hey, yeah, I want NBA players. And then you realize, hey, you know what? But there's a ton of high level basketball players that don't play in the NBA. And it's not always just a talent thing. There's a lot of layers and there's a lot of nuance as to what gets somebody into the NBA or not and what keeps them there. So it's been really fun to see, the IFAST basketball explosion and the growth. And we'll talk more about that. And if I want to continue that kind of growth in a little bit. Also, IFAST Basketball Insiders exploded in maybe not a good way, because I actually blew it up. And this is one of those things where, man, passion project to the max. I'm so passionate about basketball. I think about it. It kind of consumes my training thoughts at this point in time. But we'll talk about this later on. And just because you're excited or passionate about something doesn't mean you have an audience for it. And so this is a big learning moment for me. It's one of those things where I feel like in most instances, if I've created something, it's done really well. Any of the products, any of the courses that I put on, done really well. And this was one where it was like, I had a decent core audience, but it just wasn't growing, and it wasn't changing and growing the way that I wanted it to. So it was time for me to kind of shut it down and then come full circle on it and try and figure out, okay, well, how do I make this something that's more palatable? Maybe people don't want, the Q&A calls. Maybe people don't want just the monthly recurring charges. Maybe they just want almost like a cert, like a complete coach cert, but for basketball. I don't know. That's on me to try and figure that out. But it doesn't mean my interest or my love of creating content for basketball players and coaches has changed at all. In fact, I think it's actually higher now than it was then. It's just trying to figure out what medium works best. And so that's kind of on my to-do list for 2026. The podcast, obviously another amazing year, crossing 500 episodes. That's no small feat. And just a thank you again to you, to those of you that listen and support the show, to anybody that has been a part of the show, the guests, the producers, the people that have helped on the back end of all this. Man, thank you guys so much for this. It's been an amazing year. I got to give a shout out to all of our partners, whether it's Hawk and Dynamics, Push Press, Train Heroic, Anchor, or now What's That Strap. You guys help drive all of this, and the show wouldn't be what it is without your help and your support. And I thank you so much for what you guys do for me and the show. Um, but I think also it's one of those things where I'm starting to have thoughts as to, is this the final go round? And I know it's hard to be like on a high and then on a low at the same time, but I just feel like the landscape is changing. When I got back into the podcast space, it was very much on this rise. And now I feel like in some ways, it's very much like blogs and articles got, right? Before podcasts and videos really got hot and everybody started watching podcasts and listening or watching videos and all that. Um, articles you just kind of got drowned in articles and blogs and content because everybody was doing it, right? And everybody's clamoring for your attention. And I feel like it's even more so that way now. And now it's so easy to create a podcast. I mean, you've got basically like one-stop shops where I could go record a show, talking to my, camera, talking to my computer, hit a button, it's edited, it's uploaded, it's out there with no editing, no back end production. Like it's so easy to do now, but at the same time, hey, the quality isn't always what we would like for it to be. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about quite a bit right now. So if you love the show and you want me to keep going, please, I would love to hear it. But I also have started to have these thoughts or entertain these thoughts of, hey man, it could take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours in a week of work to create a really good podcast. And that's all the things, right? That's finding new guests, that's pulling together Q&As, that's recording the show, that's doing homework that leads up to recording the show, because I don't just, randomly pop on and we just start rapping. Some people I could pull that off with, and Andy, Luca, Joe Ken, we could just get on and chop it up for an hour like a barbershop. But if I'm going to ask a high-level professional questions that are meaningful and that will help move the needle for you in your life or in your business, I got to do my homework. And so it's one of those things where I'm starting to weigh the opportunity costs of, do I want to continue to spend 6, 8, 10 hours a week on the podcast? Or is that better served with me creating my own content, like writing more articles, creating more products? That I don't know about. It's something I'm going to think about, but definitely if you want me to continue the show, you enjoy the show, please, I would love to hear from you in any way of communication that works best for you. Newsletters, consistent. I'm pushing those out with the podcast, with the articles. So I feel good about that. And then I think the most impactful thing at the end of 2025, beyond just reflecting and being eternally grateful for the great things that happened in that year and the great people I'm around, is that I really got organized and focused. And it really comes back to that Built to Last mastermind or mentorship group that I attended in Nashville. And Andy and I talked about this in his most recent podcast. I'll try and remember to put it in the show notes. But the theme of, one of his talks was, if it's not on my calendar, it's not a thing. And this is something that I've struggled with over the years. Being an entrepreneur, nobody's holding your feet to the fire. Like if you get stuff done, great. If you don't, okay, well, there's consequences with that. And so I've tried to be more and more diligent, but also trying to find this way to be diligent, to be thoughtful, and to be clear on the things that I want to get done. And I feel like it took me until the end of last year to really lock in on a system that works for me. And so now basically my entire week is planned in advance. So I know on Monday morning at 8:00, I'm writing all my social media content for the week. I know Monday at 9:00, I'm doing all my podcast Q&A and research work to get ready for that week's show. I know from 10 to 12, I'm coaching. Like I have my entire week blocked out like that. So I know at any given moment in time what I should be doing. And I feel like the only downside to this was it happened at the end of the year. And so I was like so locked in for 2 weeks, and then it's Christmas break. And so, we go and see my parents for 5 days, come back. And then, we had another week off. So we're a little bit all over the place. So I'm just now recapturing that rhythm. But man, just the organization and the focus that I captured at the end of last year, I'm trying to bottle all that up and then just use it to push things forward in 2026. So I want to talk about a couple quick lessons learned, because, if you take a step back and you reflect on the last year, you realize, hey man, it could be the best year and amazing things happen, but there are things that happen negatively that you can learn from. and vice versa. You could have like the worst year ever, but there were still positive moments. There were still those silver linings. So I'm not going to go too deep on these, but there's a couple like kind of key things that I keep coming back to. First off, I'm going to quote Mace. You guys, hopefully you all know who Mace is. One of my favorite rappers, just a killer album. I think it was in like 97 or 98, just absolute bangers. And then he was with Diddy. And so luckily for him, he got out. But he made an incredible album. And one of the lines in that was, "We can't all make moves at the same time." And this is really hard in the social media age that we live in. We see everybody else and they're flashing, their success, whether it's their family, their physique, their business. Everybody is going to give you their personal highlight reel. And one of the things I think is helpful for me is I'm at least self-aware enough to know that, hey, that's cool, good for you, but I have to do what's best for me. And so really for the last 2 years, I had to kind of take a step back and reflect on myself. And I think 2024, 2025 were all about kind of clarity and refocusing my energy, because early in my career, I had a lot of success, especially whether it was coaching, whether it was online, whether it was the gym. There's been a lot of change over the last couple of years with, kind of the way I approach coaching, the changes that we've had at the gym, moving from an employee to moving from an employee to an independent contractor style setup, shifting away from any sort of like gen pop kind of client base to almost exclusively basketball, at least in the gym. There's just been a lot of changes. And so trying to get really clear on, okay, what are my goals? What does the next phase of life look like for me and for my businesses? And so it took me a year or two to put that together. And I was okay with that. I was okay with, hey, this is not going to be a year of growth and expansion. Now, there were areas where there was growth and expansion, but it wasn't kind of everything at once. And so now that I do have that focus and I do have kind of that vision of what I want things to be like, 2026 really comes back down to hard work and doing the thing, right? I've got the systems, I've got the frameworks, I know what I want and need to be focusing my energy on. So 2026 is just about doing the damn thing. And I'm excited about that. A second point that was reiterated to me a couple times in a couple different ways was this whole, if you build it, they will come. And if you remember the great Field of Dreams movie, that was the whole thing, right? The guy's got, the huge cornfield and he's hearing whispers like, oh, if you build it, they will come. And he levels his cornfield and builds a baseball field. Well, you know what? That sounds great. And it makes for an awesome movie, but it doesn't work in real life. It just doesn't. And I've seen this so many times over my 20 plus years in this field. I've seen amazing coaches that have opened facilities only to watch them fail. I saw it with IBI. I thought anything that I touched, anything that I started would not fail. And just because I was going to dedicate my time and energy and I was going to make it awesome, it would not fail. Now, did it truly fail? No, I was making money on it, but it just wasn't the level of growth and expansion that I would have liked. So again, just because you build it doesn't mean they will come. Even the basketball gym that went in next to us. I mean, you're talking just a beautiful facility. People walked in there and they're like, man, this looks like, the Mamba Academy. But, unfortunately, they just couldn't crack the code of, who is our core audience, what is our core business model. And so don't fall into this trap, right? Of just like, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't work like that. You have to have a clear vision. You have to have a clear customer. You got to be really clear on what your intentions are. And if you can do those things, right, and then you add in, the hard work, the dedication, maybe a little bit of luck, then hopefully things will come together for you. Number 3, a little bit off topic, but feet are really important. And I think I was a little remiss to just dive full force into feet a couple years ago, mostly because I felt like it was just like the cool joint of the time. But it's been impressed upon me numerous times over the years, and I've made it a real focus of mine to try and understand the foot as much as possible. I've got my beautiful little foot model here, right? Heel rocker, ankle rocker, toe rocker. We get to do all these things, but man, I've had just a lot of interest in that over the years, to the point where, you know, a lot of times when I'm deeply interested in something, I'm going to turn it into a product of some sort. So maybe someday I'm going to create a foot product. Still feel like I need to create an updated knee product first. But man, the feet are really important. I've been asked to consult on a handful of athletes that have had foot issues. So that's been really fun and engaging. You know me. I mean, I'm just curious. I'm always asking questions and I always want to learn more. So feet are really important. I'm probably going to be talking about them more in 2026. So that's been fun. The power of being healthy, something that I'm constantly reminded of. And obviously for me, that tracks. I'm 47 now. I'll be 48 at some point this year. Um, but even more so with my athletes and the people that I work with, man, if you're healthy, everything feels better, right? It's way easier to get on the court and play at a high level. If you're healthy in life, it's way easier to be successful at work, with your friends and family. Like everything in life is better if you're taking care of yourself. And this is something that I'm really trying to impress upon the people around me, because there are a couple guys who, have, how do I put this? They've loosely asked me to help them, but then are unwilling or unable to actually commit to doing the stuff necessary. So it kind of goes with my next point, which is, they have to want it. This was one of my most popular social media posts of 2020, well, 2026 now. Sorry, all the months and the years are getting jumbled together. But here recently I posted, my simple rule is that I can't want it more than they do. And it's crazy because, a big part of the reason I got started working with professional athletes was that motivation was a non-issue, right? Like in most cases, they wanted to come into the gym. They wanted to work out. They wanted to get better because they would be rewarded financially because of that, right? Or if nothing else, yeah, you keep making money and it makes it, kind of pushes the can down the curb to where you actually have to go out and get a real job. And so that's great, but sometimes even the money isn't a big enough incentive. And when we're talking tens of millions of dollars, like that would be enough incentive for me, but for some people that is not. So I just keep coming back to this idea of, yeah, you gotta stay healthy because that allows you to perform in every area of your life. And along with that, when you're working with people, and this is just a good general rule for us trainers and coaches, is that, they have to want it too. We can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful. And then the final lesson, in case you haven't picked up on this along the way, is to just stay curious. Keep asking questions. I mean, 25 years in, I think one of the biggest things that I'm shocked by is the fact that I'm always asking questions. I'm always writing things down. I'm always jotting down notes, and just trying to continue to peel back layers of the onion. I don't claim to know it all. I don't claim to have it all figured out, but it's not going to be due to lack of trying. So whether you're 2 years in, 10 years in, 20 years in, it doesn't matter. Stay curious. Keep asking questions, because I think the more curious you are, the more enjoyable this whole training and coaching thing is. So those are some lessons learned. And then finally, we have our 2026 goals. And so I think my theme for 2026 is as such: keep punching the clock and showing up. And let me give you a couple for instances here, right? So we talked about IBI, unfortunately didn't go the way that I would have liked. Man, if 2025 would have gone exactly how I would have liked, and I would have netted all of the clients and all of the athletes that I had talked to, man, I'm not exaggerating. It would have been a year for the ages, because I might have had at least one, if not two NFL all pros in my gym. I might have had one of the best basketball players in the world in my gym. Sometimes it just doesn't happen, right? Sometimes, whether it's a timing thing, whether it's, just, dumb luck, maybe they have other things, other priorities, their team isn't on board with things. Hey, you don't control that. I don't control that. So the one thing I will say for myself in 2025, hey man, I took some big swings. If I'm going to use a baseball analogy, shout out to my boy Eric Cressy. I took some big swings, and I had really good contact a couple times, and there were a couple times I struck out. But That's part of it. And so that's not going to preclude me or stop me from continuing to take those big swings in the years to come. So keep punching the clock and showing up. That's the theme. For my personal body self, one of the things that I'm really locked in on this year is just dedicating myself to recovery. One thing that I've learned over the years is that, hey, yeah, training needs to be at the forefront when you're younger, but recovery becomes more and more important the older you get or the more miles you have on your body. So one of the things that I did for the first time ever this year in December of 2025, I set up 12 massages for this year, one every month. I set up 12 PT appointments, not with Bill because Bill's retired. Although I bet Bill would still see me. If Bill ever sees this, I bet Bill would still see me because he likes me. But I'm going to go see Eric, who is Bill's understudy. But yeah, I've got this lined up once a month for the entire year. They're spread out every 2 weeks. And so I'm just really locked in on taking care of myself because two things. One, I still love training. Like I still love training. I still love working out. I love the feeling that it gives me. It gives me so much energy and joy to be in the gym. But also I love coaching. And there's also this realization of, hey, if I tweak my back doing something in the weight room and that precludes me from doing what I enjoy, whether it's, at home, spending time with my kids, whether it's not being able to sit in a chair and write articles or go in the gym and coach, that's a problem. So I'm dedicating myself to recovery. Again, this is like Luca talks about your watch and your wallet, right? So where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? And well, hey, I'm aligning my watch and my wallet with these goals of, hey, massage once a month, PT once a month. I'm going to make sure my body's right. And I'm going to pair that with super consistent programming. Like you, I don't know, maybe you're a better person than I am. Man, there are just times where I write everybody else's program before I write my own. And I get stuck in these little ruts and I'm kind of doing the same programs and the same exercises and they work, but there's just not as much results. There's not as much progress as I'd like. And so you kind of get in this rut. And so that's the next piece here is just dialing in my own programming. I don't necessarily need somebody else to do that for me, but I need to take the time to write it for myself because I kind of know how my body works at this point, and I kind of know what makes me feel good and what allows me to train and perform at a high level. So those are my body goals, personal goals, 2 to 3 family trips again this year. Looks like we're definitely going to be doing one in Arizona. More to come on that. But we're going to do a family trip to Arizona. I'm sure we will see my parents in Florida at some point. Fall break is TBD. And then one thing we had talked about, and I don't know if we can pull this off, but our old neighbors, Mr. Ricky is from South Africa, and he had talked about, a bunch of us going to South Africa and seeing his family, doing a safari, all that. I mean, that's one of those things where, okay, there's a big like monetary investment in that and some saving involved, but that's also, you talk about like a lifetime core memory type trip. So that's something that, unfortunately, this is how my brain works. When something's in this beady little brain of mine, it's hard to get it out. So definitely kind of at the forefront of my brain right now. And if we can pull that off, I think that's something I definitely like to do. Beyond the trips, continuing to support my daughter. She's amazing. Just watching her grow, whether it's soccer, whether it's school. She's going to be 15 in like 2 weeks. So you know what that means, right? Like she's going to be getting behind a wheel soon. She's going to get her learner's permit. She's going to be driving. So just continuing to help her grow and evolve and thrive as a young woman. Just anything I can do to support her. I love that girl so much. With Cade, again, continuing to figure out what this guy loves and continuing to figure out what he's passionate about. He loves, Fortnite and video games and computers and tech. So, man, what is he going to do? I just always say, hey, I just want you to use your superpowers for good, man. So it's continuing to just, support that guy and love him and watch him grow up and become an awesome young man. So, the family got some goals there. RTS, I just call it the big glow up. That's what all the cool kids were saying a while back. I don't know if it's still cool anymore, but I think it's just time for a little bit of a refresh. So, getting the updated logo, and I know that's probably not a huge deal, but to me, just something a little bit fresher, something newer, more modern. It's time to fix the website. I love the website and it looks great and it's still incredibly functional. But what I really want to do to the website is make it somewhere to, can we just harken back to 10 or 15 years ago where we make an amazing cup of coffee, we'd sit down in front of a computer or with our iPad and we just read an article, right? Not skim it, not listen to it, not watch a video, just read a really good article that took time and effort and intention to create. Because that's where I'm at, man. The articles that I'm writing now, I'm trying to get back to kind of my core and back to my roots, because when I create that consistent content, I am a better coach. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it just helps me streamline and organize my thoughts. It makes it more clear and more concrete. And it also makes it a little bit more waterproof and a little bit more airtight, because sometimes these concepts, I know they work because I use them every day when I'm in the gym, but I can't always explain it. And I think that's really the next level of all this. And that's what great educators, great mentors do. They take these complex concepts and they distill it down and they make it easy to digest and understand. And so that's why, at least for me, I think RTS is probably going to get a refresh at some point this year. Again, I realize it's a different day and age, and maybe it's a waste of time and money, but I would like to think that some people want to get off social media. They don't want to just mindlessly consume content. They want to be a little bit more directly engaged. And so that's where I really hope some of the articles and the content that I create this year is going to be meaningful and impactful to you. IFAST Basketball. So the way I describe this is continued development, but not necessarily growth. So at the end of last summer, I was about as full as I wanted to be from a client perspective. I didn't necessarily want or need to add anybody else. But what I do want to do is continue to refine the process. And so what I mean by that is just refining everything from the way I intake clients to the way I write programs, to the way I test them. Again, shout out to Hawken, because they have so many tools and devices now, whether it's the force plates, whether it's the true strength. I can really hone in on what people need. So again, I don't know if I necessarily need a ton more clients, but it's continuing to refine those processes that I'm using with the athletes that I already have, and just continuing to help them level up. When it's the young players, it's the actual physical development, right? Giving them the tools, giving them the physical juice to compete at whatever level they want to play at. And then for my vets, it's, hey, how do we get you healthy and feeling good? How do we create those buffer zones so you can go play another 6, 8, 10-month season and continue to stack those checks and make those contracts for as long as you want? The final piece here is, 1 to 3 NBA consulting clients. And I'm just going to put this out there because, man, a lot of opportunities over the last couple of years. And I think some of those are going to come to fruition soon. There's just a lot of things that have to happen to get high-level clients. And man, when I think about it, a couple of years ago, I had 5 or 6 NBA clients in one offseason. And when you think about that, that's over 1% of the NBA. Like, I had 5 or 6 NBA clients in my gym for an entire offseason. Like, that's pretty cool. But things come and go. And I don't necessarily need NBA clients. Number one, I don't need the money, right? Like, I don't need extra income, and I don't need it for clout anymore. I think when you're young, those high-level clients, they give you a little bit of extra swagger, right? You're like, yeah, I train NBA clients. Yeah, I train NFL clients. You get to a certain point and you realize, hey, that's great, but they're all clients. They're all athletes. And just because my guys now play in China or Spain or Belgium or, anywhere else, doesn't matter. They're still high-level basketball players. They get paid to play a sport. But I will say this. One thing that's nice about having some NBA clients just makes the NBA season way more memorable, right? I'm watching games with some more intention. It's a little bit more engaging. And so that's just something that I think I would like to do. Again, it's just fun. It makes things more fun. And for me, yeah, I want to do incredibly high level work. I want to help all my athletes get better results, but I want it to be fun too. And just, having some skin in the game at that level makes it a little bit more fun. And then finally, 1 to 2 big projects and 1 to 2 seminars. So if you have been following the newsletter the last couple weeks or the last couple months, I've tried to give people this little onboarding system, right? So if you're new, hey, go check out one of my starter products. If you're struggling and you've been a coach for a little while and you want my whole system, go buy my cert. If you've gone through the cert, or you really just want to like lock in and dial in and maximize your program design process, go to my mentorship. Like that sequence works really well. And I can tell you for a fact that people that have gone through those 3 steps, by the time you've gone through the cert and you've gone through the mentorship, like 80% of what I do. Maybe not always the why, or you don't always know all the nuance and all the detail, but if you're applying that stuff, you're writing really high level programs. You are coaching with a high level of proficiency. But seminars are great because they give us that one-on-one interaction, right? We get around other great trainers, other coaches, people that are passionate and excited about training. So it refills our fuel tanks. So I know for sure in Arizona in April, I'm going to be doing an optimizing movement workshop. Details are TBD. Stay tuned to the newsletter, the website, but that's definitely happening. As far as later in the year, unknown. I'm sure I'm going to, conjure up another event or 2, but I'm going to make it a goal, for as long as I do this, to hopefully do at least 1, if not 2 or 3 live events, because I feel like live events, they might be a lost art, but we need them. And hey, man, I sell online products. I sell online courses. It's a great way to learn, but it's probably not the best way to learn. If you could come and hang out for 2 days and listen to me talk about my philosophy, see how I do my assessment process, see what I'm seeing while we're coaching, while we're queuing, I'm sorry. That's the best way to learn. It's dynamic, it's interactive, it's more energetic. It is a superior way to learn. So 1 to 2 seminars this year, and then 1 to 2 what I would just describe as big projects. And what that looks like, I don't know. Bulletproof Knees 2.0, maybe. The IFAST Basketball approach to, I don't know, whatever, like a core product that's similar to Complete Coach, all about basketball and developing basketball players, maybe. I don't know yet. But there's going to be something before the year is up, because that's kind of where I'm at with this. It's like, yeah, the articles are great because they help me refine these pieces of my system. But then at the end, I need something to show for it. I need something that's bigger and a little bit more overarching. And so what that's going to look like, not 100% sure yet, just being honest, but I'm excited because it allows me to get excited about my work. And that's something it's got to be there, right? Like I can stick my nose to the grindstone for a long period of time, but it's got to be fun. It's got to be engaging. And for me, what might be fun and engaging to me may not resonate with other people, right? Like I'm okay with the work if I know at the end I'm creating something great and I'm making myself a better trainer, coach, educator, mentor. Those things move the needle for me. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, guys. That's 2025 review. That's 2026 preview. Those are lessons learned. Man, when you take a step back and you realize all the things that happened in a year, you realize, man, a lot of ground covered, but there's a lot of things left to be done. So if I can leave you with anything, it would just be this. Again, thank you so much for your support. 2025 was an amazing year for me personally, professionally. The podcast grew, it evolved. And like I said, whether it continues past this year, hard to say, but if you're enjoying it, please, I would love to hear it. Whether it's a DM, whether it's an email, whatever way you choose to reach out, I would love to hear from you. But my friend, that does it for this week's episode. As always, thank you so much for your support. Love and appreciate you. And we'll be back next week with our next episode. Take care.